All right, everybody, welcome to CyberBulls. So there's more and more signs pointing that we are headed into a boom market, not only for the economy, but also for the Mag 7, the tech companies, the AI companies, of which Tesla is part of that. So we've got the bulls with us. We've got a special guest bull, Larry Goldberg. He's a multi-entrepreneur. We're going to ask the question, are we headed into a bull market? Let's start with you, Jeff. What's your answer to that question? What's happening in 2024?
Well, I mean, let's say what happened in 2023. We have S&P growth. I think it's over at 20%. We have the NASDAQ, I think, approaching 40% growth. And I think we had a lot of people, coming into 2023, kind of with the doom and gloom view. We had this horrible Q4 2022. And there's a lot of people kind of calling for a continuation of that, and we didn't get that. We had a big rally in the first half, and then we had it cool off a bit seasonality wise. August, September, I think it stretched a little bit longer than people thought, even through October, where we had the market cool off and pull back a bit. Not really a true rotation. You had the Magnificent Seven kind of driving most of the year, but then you now have the equal weighted S&P starting to peek its head out. So in terms of like where we're at right now, we've had a blistering start to November. Seasonality wise, November and December are fantastic months, probably potentially the top 2 months seasonality wise for the market. And there's a lot of reason for that to continue. It's not saying that there's zero risk on the other side of this, but there's a lot of reason for that to continue. There's a tremendous amount of money on the sidelines. There were a lot of people caught off guard in the first half, and these money managers that are caught off guard, they're not, meeting a benchmark, or there's a lot of other groups that have beat them. They're going to want to go after that and try to capture some of that in the last, call it 6 weeks of the year when it's supposedly seasonably good. We've got in the last month, we've had really good data points from a macro perspective, not only in the United States, but also abroad. We've had, Canadian inflation drop. We've had inflation in the UK drop significantly. We've had significant drops coming back home here in the US year over year on inflation. Is it still too high? Yeah, the numbers are not where the Fed wants them to be, but I would say the pace of deceleration is it's going well. And so when you have those data points, we've had some slight tick ups in unemployment, and there's, and we've had really good retail sales data, and then the housing market in the last CPI really is starting to take a big chunk out. It looks like it will continue to, and that was the last leg of the stool that really needed to drop. And you've had energy prices, which drive a lot of the cost structure in the CPI and the PPI, and those have really come under control. So it's not all, roses, but there's a lot of reasons to think that the inflation will continue to drop. And there's a lot of reasons to believe that the Fed is done. And the Fed will not say that they're done and over until the day, the minute, and the hour that they have to actually announce that. Because if they were to come out last month and say, we're done, you would have had this massive unwind in the bond market and equity markets. Instead, they've had the bond market and equity markets. Basically, the bond market's been working for them. We've had tightening from 4% on the long end on the 10-year all the way up to 5%. And now it's pulled back with the recent stats from a macro perspective. So I do think we are in a boom market. We just had NVIDIA earnings from an AI perspective, and they're doing their end of it. I know there's mixed results of that, in after hours. But I think, what we'll see in trading today on Friday, I think we'll see, that doing very well over the near term and long term, and they've got a great outlook. So I do think we're in a bull market. I do think there's risks out there that we've got to deal with, and we'll see how that goes. But I think we're going to end the year strong.
Okay, let's do a roundtable, and we're going to ask you, Larry. I know you have a slightly different opinion. Curious to see what you're going to say now.
Well, it's undoubtedly a bull market because the market's up. The question is, what happens in the new year? And I think we have several major risks ahead. The biggest major risk is the Fed overhang. I mean, it's one thing to raise interest rates and keep ratcheting up interest rates. It's another thing to, put these to unwind their balance sheet. And so that's going to take an awful lot of cash, an awful lot of money out of the so-called money on the sidelines, and it's going to compete. It all turns on productivity, the growth of productivity. If we get a huge spurt in productivity from AI, from the adoption of AI, I should say, and from the implementation of AI, then we could see a 1985 to 2000 run up over time of enormous proportions. Absent that, the risks in the market are very, very high indeed, and we could well see a significant recession because right now, if you look at the money supply, it's going up, but volatility is remaining very low. And, inflation is a function of volatility times money supply, or money supply times volatility. And so I think we are in a period of, deflation rather than inflation. That's what we're about to see. And that's really hard to battle. So everything turns on the productivity that we can wring out of AI, and a lot turns on that. So go Elon, go Sam, go. Let's get this done.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk about how this impacts Tesla, but right now let's continue the conversation about the economy and the bull market. Alexandra.
Yeah, obviously both Jeff and Larry have their points, and I agree with those. And it's not a clear slate for a boom market, nor is it, nor are we really already in a recession. The soft landing is possible. I mean, I'd have a hard time letting the Fed know that they did this right. I don't think they did this right, but if they manage a soft landing here, it's good. What is very encouraging is actually the actions of three people that have knowledge in this market. One is Jim Chanos, who is finally giving up, closing his hedge fund. I don't think it's with a light heart. I mean, we'll talk about that in a recording we're doing tomorrow, Herbert, his position in Tesla, but it's not only Tesla. He also had a huge position in the Chinese real estate market and all that. The fact that he's unwinding is he's giving up. He knows this market is not ripe for his bearish stances. The second one is Citadel's Ken Griffin. Ken is supposedly in very advanced talks to purchase the Miami Dolphins, the Hard Rock Stadium, and the Formula One Grand Prix in Miami. So all three in Florida. You don't do that if you're not extremely bullish on entertainment, on the consumer, on tourism, and on all those cyclicals that are the first ones to suffer in a recession. And I mean, if Citadel doesn't have all the insider information, and this is stuff he's financing with his own money, I don't know what's happening. And then the third point is something very personal. I've watched the Grand Prix in Las Vegas. I'm a Grand Prix girl. I've been to quite a lot of them. I follow this very closely. And we were all very, very skeptical whether this is going to be a success. Thursday night was a disaster. And in the end, Sunday, in the night from Saturday to Sunday, everything was glorious. People were really having a good time. The employees of the Wynn Casino had $700,000 of tips to share among themselves. So depending on their level, each of them left with $2,000 to $4,000 of tip just from that one night from people playing at the casinos. So this all gives me, and I mean, I know this is the top of the crop that really likes Grand Prix and has the extra money to spend, but this gives me a lot of comfort, especially since the next morning, on Monday morning, we all received our email saying you can already pre-book for 2024, the hotel rooms, the places and whatsoever. So I just feel that in segments that are highly cyclical, we currently see a lot of very encouraging signs. And that is typically the beginning of a huge boom market.
Yeah. Okay. So my information came from watching a number of economists, and what they're saying is that we are headed into a boom market, and here's why. Right. First of all, you're correct. I'm not saying that we're not going to get into recession. That's still very much on the table. Just a month ago, Elon came out, said that he has to prepare for it. He's not saying it's going to happen, but he has to prepare for it. Very much still on the table. But here's the four things that economists are pointing to. Number one, there's short seller capitulation that's happening right now. And they said that typically just before the boom market happens, you see this activity happening. Two, there's been significant amount of money that's been sitting on the sidelines that are now starting to flow into the Magnificent Seven and starting to show in the S&P 500, and we're starting to be invested because there's now anticipation of the Fed fund rate going down. Three, the AI boom is real. We've seen that at the beginning of this year. Now we're seeing that spread to multiple companies, showing that this is not just this technology, but actually impacting workers. And you can see certain companies already firing people because they don't need the copywriter anymore. People are becoming more productive. I think it's a tool that every employee is able to use, are using, and is showing up now, just now, as quickly as now. You don't even have to wait 2 years for this. And then the fourth thing is the investment that we're seeing in the AI tools, the chips, the data warehouses, and all companies are doing this now. That's why you saw NVIDIA just clobber, just smash their expectations and their across the board earnings and revenue, everything, because the demand for this is through the roof. Every company's trying to do this. So that's the difference between this time around, obviously switching from a kind of this recessionary period of inflation that's now being tamed. This is the reason AI boom came in, and this is something that people are just going to, no matter what the environment is, they have to spend the money and they need to go there. So let's talk about Tesla, what you think, how this might affect Tesla. And so we've got this table here that Gary Black shared that I thought was really good. This is the expectations by the market for the Fed fund rates. And if you see here in November and December 23, this is where we're at. It's going to stay flat. Now, just recently, we started hearing that there's even a potential for the Fed to do a pivot, a cut in December. But, the percentage of them doing a cut in March is now skyrocketed high. So that's where most market makers are anticipating it to do that. But here's the anticipation. By the end of the year 2024, you're going to see a cut. So when this happens, it has a double impact to Tesla, right? So number one, he says it will reduce the odds that Tesla will need to cut EV prices again, right? Because the interest rates fall, Tesla's prices, they may even be able to raise it. Their margins will rise. And then the second thing is long duration stocks. So the growth companies like Tesla, that's where the people will, have pulled back in the last several years because of high interest rates. Now they're going to be much more open to that. What is the panel's thinking about that? Who wants to answer first?
I'll start really quick and just say that you have to remember this is, a plot that's based on, I believe, the Fed, the recent kind of Fed fund futures. I don't know if it's their official dot plot or not, or just futures activity, but just the ability to forecast is the point I wanted to leave people with. In November of 2021, before all the rate hikes started in March of 2022, there were 0 rate hikes in the calendar year plan for 2022. And I think in December of 21, they added, maybe a half point or even 0.7. But, it was a really small number. They ended up, hiking 400 basis points in the year, and then ended up doing 11 hikes over, call it 18 months. So the point is the Fed's ability to forecast these things, they tend to come in slow, which they came in, they reacted slowly to this and put us in a fairly big issue. And then they tend to overshoot. So a lot of people believe that they've overshot on this one. So in terms of them and this higher for longer thing, you have to believe higher for longer if you believe in their ability to forecast. But if you believe that they start late and they tend to overshoot, then they may have to take this curve down much more rapidly. So I don't know what's going to happen. You've got to respond to the macro side of the economy. I just wanted to call out kind of the ability to forecast and the history of overshooting. Both of those things to me tell me that this curve may get a lot more steeper.
then what will happen to Tesla if it even falls faster?
Well, look, I think there's a couple of air pockets for Tesla. One, maybe three. One is, I mean, a month ago, this curve was not even showing any cuts. Maybe somewhere between September and December of 2024. Now you see the first cuts. The probabilities are leaking into June and March of next year. So this only helps Tesla. This is the total cost of the vehicle to the consumer. So this is the thing also. This helps the consumer at the point of sale, but this helps Elon mentally as well understand like where he should be positioning his company and the capital and being more bullish. And for the last 3 earnings calls, he's been dooming, regarding interest rates. So if this curve is going to be more steeper on the other side, they're going to be pulling this off. I think it's a good place for Tesla. I think it's an air pocket in terms of demand. I think another one is going to be the 7,500 off invoice starting literally in about 5 or 6 weeks in the United States on the 3 and the Y, and I guess select X's. So I think that's another air pocket. And the third one we may not get time to talk about is, and no one's really talking about, is what is going to be the impact of opening up imports into India? And what is that going to do to volume? I mean, we don't know. It's not going to be gangbusters maybe from day one, but what is this also going to do to the cost structure of Berlin? Like it did for Shanghai to be this major exporter. If Berlin is now this major exporter into this India market and maybe other markets, that's one of the biggest attractors of Tesla COGS has been Berlin. And so I think those are 3 air pockets that could be all connected to this rate picture.
I love it, Jeff. So get this, guys. Okay. Despite us just hearing Larry talking about that, very cautious, maybe still have a recession coming, you're not going to believe what his estimate is for Tesla's sales at the end of 2024. Go ahead, Larry. Shock us all.
Yeah, I think Tesla's going to deliver 2.4 million cars in 2024. And I feel fairly confident of that. I'm looking at China running flat out. I'm looking at Berlin running flat out. And I'm looking at Fremont running flat out. And, I think that Austin will deliver a fairly significant number of Ys. And I'm not counting on much more than 75,000 or so Cybertrucks. So I think that we're going to deliver a fairly significant number of cars at at reasonable prices in the year of 2024. I'm very confident of that. And I think that's somewhat independent of economic circumstances because I think demand is there. I mean, Europe's having a great year, by the way. Tesla's share in Europe has climbed significantly. I think it's at a record level, despite everybody's naysaying. I think China's doing very well. The numbers last week for China deliveries was lower because all of these cars are on the dock for export, but this week was great. I think it's going to be a great end of a quarter for China, but I think next year is going to be fantastic for China. That's my view.
What do you think, Alexandra?
No, I agree. My number is 2.3, just because I'm a little bit more conservative.
Alexandra!
Yeah, but I mean, come on. For once, I let you be the most optimistic there. But I mean, it's a napkin written little number. It's not as if I've really thought this through.
I put a case of Tablas Creek on the table for that.
Oh, there you go. Oh, you just want to win your wine again because you love it so much, right? So why am I a little bit skeptic? I'm a little bit skeptic on Berlin ramping up. I mean, Berlin has really been, slow in getting there. They're now getting the permits for the expansion, so they'll be busy also building the second building and the battery ramps. So I'm a little bit worried about that. And I mean, I agree with Jeff. It would be wonderful if those Ys from Berlin could be imported to India at a competitive price without any duties, or only with very little duties. That would be great. But Berlin at the moment is producing what they can sell, right? I'm just not sure that they can really step it up already. Recruiting seems to be, still a major difficulty. I don't read a lot of German press, and they are as bad as they're here in the United States. So you always have to check twice or three times whether it's really as bad as they pretend. But there seems to be a real backlog in finding the right personnel. The funny thing, just read a couple of weeks ago, Tesla is now recruiting veterans. When you get out of what is called the Bundeswehr, the German army, they recruit them directly from there. They find they have the right attitude, and then they form them for whatever job they need them. And I think they've gotten the first 80 or 100 of them with great success. So that was very popular in the German press. So 2.3, which I think is a great number. I have no doubt we'll get to the 1.8 million this year. And I mean, if it is 10 less or 10 more, we'll hear it all day long, right? That's just going to be it. But I think we're going to be quite close to it.
Okay. So
there was a survey on that.
No, I know. I saw that. I don't know what they're steering there.
Could I jump in about Berlin's production? Sure. I read today that the concern about Berlin's production levels is that fourth shift is going to adds a significant cost. I think actually it's going to be well worth it, to deliver to India to add that fourth shift. That's my read of the subject. So I think right. That's true, but the marginal additional volume and margin on that additional revenue, I think, is quite significant. So I think we're going to see a fourth shift in Germany next year, and I think we're going to see demand off the
I'm not worried about demand. I'm more worried about finding sufficient employees and getting the ramp really finished off. And while they're already building the next building the $25,000 Model 2 line there as well. I mean, there's so many things happening, Berlin, where you just feel like, okay, get this one up and running full speed.
Can you guys help me understand better?
Herbert Ong.
There you go. Wow.
Have faith.
You guys help me understand at what point will Tesla and Elon specifically change his mind or start pressing the pedal on the metal in terms of investment, right? So on the last earnings call, he said, hey, we're going to expand in Berlin or Texas, but we're going to not invest in Giga Mexico. Now we're hearing that
he's spending money like crazy.
Right.
And not
they
on
need to spend money
on chips,
Dojo,
on the Dojo,
right?
Exactly. Just because you don't see the walls, there's money spent.
And they're also spending money on, and just recently announced that India, they're going to put $2 billion there in January. So what happens if the interest rates actually do get cut? Is that the first sign you think that he'll be looking for, or is there just, he's still going to wait it out? And what point will he say, hey, it looks like we're in a boom market.
When he has enough chips for Dojo. I just think he's throwing everything at the Dojo.
Did Tesla say that they're going to ship $2 million to India? Is it Tesla?
Well, no, Tesla has not confirmed that. But, these are rumors that are coming from the ministries of India. It sounds like it's much more credible. This is not just, how one news builds on another news, and it seems to be kind of be true.
I'm very convinced of India. I was the first guy to talk about India and to predict India. But honestly, every piece of news that comes out of India, you have to be very cautious about it. So, guys, I've got to jump off, but it's been great to be the wet blanket.
What wine are you drinking tonight, Larry, at your wonderful dinner?
It's not Tablas Creek.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, we've been through those 2 boxes.
You are joking. They're gone. You're worse than us.
Because it turned out to be the favorite wine in the family. I mean, every time
Alexandra,
we get
I'm going to send you some more. No. This one I didn't gift. I gifted him a little bit, but then he got addicted, and now he's running after me.
So that's your trick. You can't gift everything so much like you do, Alexandra. You got to have people pay for this thing.
I drove all the way to Santa Barbara to pick up 2 boxes.
He did, and we had a wonderful evening. Thank you very much, Larry.
Well, thanks, guys. It's been great to be visiting with you.
Thank you.
Have a great
Larry.
Bon appetit. Enjoy your dinner. Take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
All
right. Well, welcome, Xander. Appreciate you joining us. So, we were just talking about, are we headed in a boom market? What's going to happen to Tesla stock? what is your expectation for 2024? I know you closely watch the stock market, and so based on your analysis of the stock market, what is your anticipation?
I think for 2024 in the market itself, it's just a moment that we're waiting for, where the Fed will officially say that they're holding and no more raises, and it's a question of when do we start dropping the rates. And after that, I think there's a lot of money on the sidelines. We're seeing yields come down. So where's it going to go? It's going to go into the equities that have a nice de-risked balance sheet, and Tesla has done that. So I think the Magnificent Seven continues. I think you're seeing them hit all-time highs now, and so I think it'll be good for Tesla if we can after this quarter that we show that the earnings are bottoming, and that we're back on the upswing, because the possibilities of earnings growth with their other possible ways of generating revenue are going to expand. And as that happens, you're going to see what's going to happen. But really, it's the AI story that has to get solidified for Tesla. And then I think that's the narrative that gets communicated. And that's when we'll see the analysts start chasing the stock, and then we get the FOMO. So, but I'm happy that it's holding steady here in the 240s, and a little surprised by the market's reaction to the Elon controversy of the anti-Semitic tweet. So it shows that the market didn't buy it, and didn't buy the story, and didn't think that Elon is anti-Semitic, and didn't think that there was this, this issue that was going to bring the stock further down, and there would be a mass sell-off. So once I didn't see it, go below 220, I think the 240s, 250s here, I think it'll continue to hover until we have some more information. I saw, I guess they put some cars on sale in inventory, so the inventory cars. So that's them trying to start getting the excitement for for the end of the year and hit that 500,000 deliveries number is what I'm looking for.
That's a good point about the tweet
on Tesla. Sorry, I'm just gonna. Sorry to interrupt. We have a timing issue. Apparently, I apologize. Couple things. One is, this is a time to act and not necessarily talk a lot. Meaning the markets and macro have been in this kind of like terrible position. What has Tesla done? They've gone and added 33% capacity from the prior year to next year. And if you look at the European and American competitors, you don't see anybody doing that. So the Chinese competitors are adding capacity as well. It's going to be Tesla and China, basically. But Tesla's acting, and they're not talking a lot about that. But they're spending the money to increase their capacity. So there's definitely some confidence in that. And they can continue to add capacity. They're not done. They could add capacity in February. They could add capacity in April. So that's one thing. The other thing is, I just remember, Tesla is certainly still compressed. I mean, there's definitely issues where we've had this EPS compression over the last year. The last time the NASDAQ, I think, was at 14.2. I think Tesla was at 360 a share. So there's definitely more room for this. It should be running higher. There's arguably things that are kind of holding it down. But I think the thing I want to leave you here with a point is, you said, like, when is this going to change? Like, when is this going to flip? It's not going to be gradual. I think you're going to hear Elon flip pretty quickly. As soon as he sees the rates going down, as soon as he sees the orders, continuing to grow or grow at a more dramatic pace, this 7,500 off invoice in the U.S., and these competitors capitulating, I don't think this has all been factored in. I think everybody's being pretty careful about it. But the answer is just like I've said about the Fed, that they're going to flip in the day, the hour, the minute that they decide that they're actually going to cut. It'll be the same thing with Elon. And all of a sudden you'll hear him saying, hey, look, we're pedal to the metal. We've got to really grow this thing. there's a tremendous demand out there, and all of a sudden you'll hear him flip that way, and it'll be off to the races again. But until then, he'll probably be careful, at least in the near term, until he sees this. I think in these inventory cars, people, this is doing business. Every automaker, between the factory and the dealership, they're doing price movement all the time. So this is a couple of thousand or a couple hundred cars that they do discounts on. This is, to me, doing business every quarter.
Alexandra?
Where is Xander? Don't you all agree we should not call him R6 Alex anymore, but real meat Xander, right? This is right. And this is the studio.
I was getting the light.
I know. I see that. And all the tubes and all the pictures and that huge round screen. I don't know how you did that, but that's well done. So yes, I agree. I agree with Jeff. He is right. I think Tesla is actually expanding as we speak, and there is no point talking about it. And while we're talking about Elon's posts, nobody watches what Tesla is doing, and it's just as well, because we don't need everyday Tesla news backing back and forth. Again, the fact that a major short seller, the one that was really feeding all these other armies of short sellers, is giving up on Tesla is a major point. We're going to follow the next couple of quarters what's happening on the short positions, but I would not be surprised that Tesla shorts are going down. Tesla is one of the stocks that has not appreciated, Jeff just said it, that has not appreciated like an NVIDIA. NVIDIA went from 200 to now 500, and maybe by the end of the year it's 600, right? There you get into zones where some people feel the lack of oxygen. Tesla at 240, there is a lot of oxygen left. There are a lot of things that can happen that bring that stock back to 400. So this would be a moment I would not be out of the stock. Honestly, I think most of the people that watch us should really not be in margin, but that's their personal decision to be taken. But I would not want to be outside of this stock for the year to come. I think this is going to be a major year, major appreciation.
I'm loving this. Okay, so first of all, Xander, you brought up the tweet. I've already forgotten all about it. It's like decades ago. Just so much has happened with OpenAI. Love your point, Jeff, that at any moment they could turn. May not be slow. That surprise that came from you. But let me just play a little. I'm going to play devil's advocate, believe it or not. Okay, so we're headed into the final month and a half of the year. There's going to be, Tesla's been, compared to the beginning of the year, of course, it's high, but it's been flat for a while now. So a Cybertruck event, some people, I think actually it was a Tesla employee. Tesla representative said that they're expecting to see 10 Cybertrucks there. That's just going to solidify that this is a slow kind of ramp. Things aren't yet perfect. We're not going to roll out the Cybertruck yet.
Oh no, because you have one in the showroom in New York. You have one that arrived today in the showroom in Tampa. You have one in the showroom of San Diego. I think they're going to pop up all over the place now. So it's not the 10 that they're delivering that day. I think the delivery event is going to be very similar to what happened in Berlin. Remember that tunnel that, you had those cars driving through and then people taking, that was about 10 Ys as well. So I don't think this is how many cars do you want to have there? 250? That's stupid. That takes
I thought the Model 3 was 30. Was it what somebody had said?
So now I think Berlin was 10 as well. I have this memory of maybe
Model S was 25.
These numbers are all they're all the same. They're all nominal. They're all small.
Exactly.
There could be two things happening here, and I've been pretty clear with people, like, this is not going to be some blazing fast ramp. This is a lot of new things for anybody in the industry to deal with. There could be two things here. One is that they found a problem, and they're in the process of correcting that problem, either internal to their factories or with their supply base. And they actually want to physically limit how many vehicles are out. So these may go to employees first. And by the way, if they go to employees, they could still be, and this is a blue money thing. Blue money is what pocket is it in inside of your corporation? Is it in COGS or is it in R&D? If they ship only to employees, it'll stay in the R&D budget and not flip all those costs in the COGS. That aside, I think they could be dealing with a problem, or they have a real limiter. And it could be both. They could have a real limiter that's limiting. They usually have, there's always we always have the same, there's always a top 5 in any ramp that you're dealing with a set of limiters. So they could have a known issue they're dealing with, or they could be just a set of limiters that they're dealing with. But I am encouraged to see these in showrooms. I am encouraged to see, the build quality that's going. I think they're changing the way that they deliver product to the field, which is a really good sign. It's a more mature sign of how they're doing this. And so, yeah, I'm not expecting a tremendous number of Cybertrucks, but I don't think anybody that's got their 480K number for the quarter has a bunch of Cybertrucks in there anyway. But I would like to see a bigger number next year, and then once they're into this ramp, I'd like to see them signal and take that ceiling up, from 250K a year to something higher. So I believe that they're going to have to do that. And
I think I would like to add something. Did you see that ridiculous note from that Jefferies analyst who recommended
today? Yeah.
Oh, you did? I didn't see that yet. Who didn't? I mean, what did you think of that? I mean, how crazy is it that a Wall Street analyst that covers Tesla would have the guts a week before the Cybertruck event to come out with a stupid note like that?
Yeah,
well, didn't you say, Alexandra, they're net short?
Yeah, they're short. They have 260,000 puts.
Sorry, Herbert.
Yeah, so this is Jeffries. He's suggesting that Tesla should actually stop and cancel the Cybertruck because it's a small margin contribution, small volume contribution. It's too much of a distraction. It's ridiculous. It was crazy that he would even say that. It's the dumbest thing I've personally heard of. Doesn't make sense at all. In fact, this vehicle at scale is going to end up turning out to be the highest margin of any of the vehicles, any product that Tesla has right now. Or
well, probably vehicle. Like the S or the X, right? The S or the X have a very healthy margin.
Well, because this was built with the intention of manufacturing and cost. That was how it was designed. And so when it gets to scale,
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that turned out to be as manageable as they had hoped 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
I would say that maybe the scale, it will take longer to get to scale, but once there's scale, it'll be just, that's why it was designed this way.
Yeah, let me just add a minute. I've been on programs, I've been on the decision panel to kill a project literally within weeks or months of a launch, where what you do is you figure out like how much liability you've put into it from an R&D and from a material perspective. And then you figure out what your time to break even is. And at some point, you may find out, by the way, it's a failure of management. It's a failure of leadership if you're finding out that close to launch that you should be killing a project. But I don't believe this is the case here. I don't believe this Jeffries analyst has any, I don't think they have the experience of manufacturing products. I don't think they have any inside information that would lead them to say something like this. I believe this was to get attention to their firm and to get a headline grabber to read some of the other stuff that they're doing. And I think they're short. So I think they're short. Alexander has shown us the data. So I don't think that situation, in my experience, applies to what's happening to Cybertruck here. It'll be interesting to see what the time to break even analysis looks like on the Cybertruck. What did it look like 6 months ago? What does it look like now, especially after all these comments from Elon? But I believe that this is going to be I think it's going to have pricing power. When you look at the demand side, it's going to have pricing power that the other vehicles don't have. And I believe there's also going to be a very expansive accessories business that is going to be super high margin, 70% plus gross margins and on those things. So I think this is going to be a different business for Tesla. And I think they're going to exceed those expectations and get this to volume and get it to profitability sooner.
Let me quickly address the short position. So they have 260,000 puts now for the third month in a row, right? So it's not something they just had for a day and was a position. Jeffries was and can at certain moments be market maker for Tesla, but currently there is no position on the market maker side. So then I had some of the Wall Street guys reaching out. It's always funny when you give those short positions out. They're all screaming from all sides. The Wall Street seems to really not like that we're putting our nose and fingers into those short positions. So that was Jean-Paul Sartre, who I usually appreciate, but who came and said, "Oh, they're just stuck in a bad trade." You're not stuck in a bad trade for 206,000 puts. I mean, excuse me. If you wake up one morning and count your positions and see, oh my gosh, I forgot these 206,000 puts, you close your position. You don't carry that around for more than 100 days and then think, okay, what can I do now? Now I put out a research paper where I say they shouldn't have done the Cybertruck a week before the launch. I mean, I've never seen anything else so unprofessional. In that little spectrum of finance, absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. The comment that you just did, Jeff, about the accessories, it's going to be huge margin. I mean, just the wrap and just the PPF alone.
I want the black one. The black one. Did you see how beautiful that car was?
Got to be all black.
And by the way, that keeps all the margins. Up. When we did the Razor phone, it launched just like Cybertruck, stainless steel only, that metal look, and then all of a sudden we introduced bubblegum pink, we didn't introduce black, and just people would pay more for those vehicles, and so now you have this whole concept of wrapping and being able to change at a postpone level at closer to the consumer. Those are super high margin. All these attachments that go on. On the back, these are all super high margin attachments. So yeah, this thing is going to be the gift that keeps on giving. And I also think this is going to be the vehicle that launches potentially, in mass on V12 and maybe FSDs out of beta. And now you could have this vehicle that has a much higher attach rate of full self-driving too. So I mean, I think there's just a number of areas that Tesla's attacking. Where they can just have significant margins quicker than maybe most think.
The reason I agree with that, because at first I was going, this got to be only Cybertruck only. It doesn't make sense to try to confuse it with other things. But the Cybertruck is supposed to represent the most technology advanced product that Tesla's ever had. He's repeated this many times. So yeah, I think if he does say that this will come with FSD 12, just a nice little add-on to say this is, at the moment, the most advanced product that's out there ever. Yeah.
Look at the UI. I mean, they've spent money. That's money to redo that user interface. It's beautiful, and Tesla hasn't done that Tesla hasn't done that in years. The UI that it's changed slightly for the new S and X, but I mean, they haven't really done significant changes. That user interface. That was a lot of money, and it looks beautiful. So I think you're just going to have this different experience. I think May Musk said, when you're driving in a Cybertruck, it feels like you're floating on a cloud. So maybe they've done something special with the suspension. I believe they've done something special with the ceiling of the cabin from an audio and from a water perspective. So I think there's a bunch of things that we just haven't been told yet that we're going to see and experience as this thing gets out there.
Do you think we can get into them at the delivery event? What do you expect? Because 3 of us are going to go there. You think they will showcase them?
Yeah, I believe you will be able to get into them.
We'll do a show, Herbert.
Oh, I know. I was actually invited to be part of the panel, and I'm like, I'm not going. Darn it. I have to say no.
Jeff, I have a quick question for you. Do you think that them withholding the price has anything to do with the COGS for why do you think they delayed this long prior to a product? And this isn't normal, correct?
I think it's abnormal to release your pricing without telling the story of your product. So, I believe they put a couple of trucks in stores, and there's a couple of placards with 4 or 5 marketing talking points. But I believe it's unusual to, they revealed their pricing when they revealed the product 4 years ago, but obviously things have changed. If you've changed the vehicle meaningfully, I think you should get up in front of everybody and tell your story about the vehicle, how it was developed, and why is it special now, and what are those specs and features that exist today, and then you reveal your pricing associated with it. So that's the way I would do it. I don't think it's abnormal. And to your point, Xander, I do believe, given my experience, that they want every minute, every hour of data that they can possibly get on the COGS side prior to setting this, but I do believe they know the numbers. They basically set up goalposts probably in the last month or two, and now they've just centered where the ball's going to go through the goalpost.
I see this exactly like the way Apple does it, right? They don't tell you the prices until they show the presentation, and then they reveal the price at the end. You're going to go, I got to buy it.
And do you expect they will give us straight away, timelines when which model is going to be available? Or will it just be one model for them? Yeah, you think that they'll give that to us?
Well, I think they'll say like, hey, we're starting with this first. So in my experience, it would be the highest spec vehicle, which they can command the highest gross margins for. Because again, when you have one of these operations, you're trying to fill that area under the curve from a cost structure perspective. So that you're crossing over that point to break even, and you want to do that as soon as possible. And the way you do that is building the highest spec configuration, as long as there's orders against it, which I think they're going to be. I think they're going to set the pricing in a way where it's like, look, we're in limited production because we're ramping the product, but we want you to have the product and experience it. It's this pricing today, and like every Tesla vehicle you've ever seen us sell, we're going to work on taking the cost structure and the price to consumers down over the coming months and years.
You want it early, you pay more. Sure.
Yeah.
And then they let they remove the language in the contract to let you resell it. So they're going to sell it high.
Yeah, that was strange. In and out. But there we go.
All right. So this happens.
I'll buy one at the event if Tesla wants to sell it.
I bring the checkbook too.
I'll bring the checkbook. I'll write a check right there.
So 9 days from now, you're going to buy a Cybertruck.
If I get it.
The first
but
employee.
I honestly believe it's employee only at the beginning, which is not.
But you can. Yeah.
I'll gladly take the one with the unacceptable gaps.
Okay. Xander driving around Austin.
Okay, so 9 days from now, this event happens. What do you guys expect? And then what else is going to happen by the end of this year? We're literally a month and a week away from the end of this year. What else can happen?
Pass so quickly, right? I mean, I do expect that we'll have some update on version 12 this year still. I mean, will we have it at the Cybertruck event? That'd be fabulous, but I doubt it. I mean, you remember how he said it's about 2 weeks, and that was when it was about 2 weeks to go to the Cybertruck event. So maybe, but I mean, 2 weeks proved to be longer usually than 2 weeks, right? So we'll see. But towards the end of the year, the whole hype will be: will we get to 1.8 million or not? You're going to see that's going to be the big subject when we get towards Christmas, and then it's going to be in financials of Q4 again. I mean, each quarter passes so quickly. You wait for the next call, and then India will be announced.
Break loose if we're 5,000 below 1.8. I heard all hell's gonna break loose.
Yeah, there was a poll that clearly showed we cannot do that. What a joke.
Jeff, what did you say about FSD? Are you still expecting an FSD partnership before the end of this year?
Well, I mean, maybe expansion. It would start there. It would start with Europe or China or both. That would be big
Australia.
news. And then they could probably take more in terms of margin per vehicle, based on if they release something after this 11.743, and if they add Smart Summon, if they add something, if it is V12, for example, they can potentially take a lot more credit from a margin perspective before the quarter's out. So I think there's a couple of surprises. FSD geographical expansion, maybe a partnership is announced, maybe V12. So I think there's some surprises along the way.
Apparently, that the FSD language appeared in the owner's manual for European cars, and then in China just this week as well. 3 ministers came out and talked about the guidelines for autonomous driving. This all happened the day after Elon met with Xi Jinping, and of course, that event happened in APEC. So,
and in Australia, it showed also in Australia.
They wouldn't go V12 everywhere, though, right? They would just come here first.
Oh yeah, V12. Yes, I think what these countries are getting is what we currently have, meaning they will go from autopilot to a V11, whatever version, whatever is
But
compatible.
why wouldn't you just go to the latest and greatest? If it's going to hit us, why wouldn't it go everywhere?
Well, the only reason is that V12 needs to be kind of trained in that location first,
Yeah.
right? That's it.
I mean, they do training. They do training. I remember I posted those job offers, which have all been filled, and that must be now 4 or 5 months ago, in Australia, in China, in Europe, in multiple countries in Europe, where they were looking for drivers that would do nothing else than train the neural net there. So yeah, you may be right, Xander. It may be straight away going to V12 there.
Okay,
I think
Xander,
they
can
would
you give
start
us
with something more soaked and then roll it out geographically, but we'll see.
Xander, can you tell me what happens to the stock market typically? I know that the last week is usually people doing tax.
Right. Yeah. Tax loss harvesting. So yeah, it looks like we're well on our way to a nice Christmas Santa rally. I guess not Christmas, but historically, when you have the type of year that we've had, especially the way that it started in the beginning of the year, you end the year with the last 2 months, especially the tail end of November. Historically, this past Friday we just had OPEX, which is the options expiration. The witching things you hear about. So this week and it's a holiday week. It's typically a slower week, and some of the days are going to be red. So today
days?
the Nasdaq. Yeah, exactly. Which one specifically? That's a good question. But you saw the Nasdaq was down, but Tesla was up. When it was, so I was very surprised today. I slept through the first hour, and that's where all the action was. So I didn't get to play today. But I think the rest of the month, like next week after the holiday, I'm hoping for a nice green kind of month. But I will be prepared for retail to sell off for tax loss harvesting during that last week. And, the institutionals, they already took care of theirs in October and September. So we already saw that rotation.
And
but I don't
we
know.
had a base at 240, 235, 230. Is that a base that's holding? And is that what we're going to expect by the end of the year? Do you see it popping? What do you guys are expecting?
Yeah, I think we're gonna we got to break through the 270, 265 multi-year trend line that we're under. So I expect there to be some resistance there, and maybe a slight pullback or whatever happens. Depends on what the mood is like. For the company, but also what kind of news comes out. So, but it might just march right through that, and then that's the point, is that you might have this that might be a catalyst for people to not want to miss the run, and they'll get it. And that's where the 300 run is, where all my options buddies were all kind of saying the same thing, although we've tampered it down. So I said 250 just to be the contrarian, but if we can't get through the 270. So, but it's it's too early to tell. Go ahead.
And I think where you have the tax harvesting on one side from retail, you also have the window dressing for mutual funds, right? And they have been,
great point.
End of September, underweight Tesla, nearly in all of the funds that are not strict index followers. So they missed the 90% we've done so far this year. And if this continues going up, they have to catch up. I mean, they cannot go into a reporting at the end of the year admitting that they were all year long underweight Tesla. So we may have a push then at the end of the year.
Yeah, I thought your point about
this time last year.
You contrast the time last year?
Oh my gosh,
I'm just contrasting
last year.
the price action from this period last year to this year. I just feel a lot better right now.
Gotcha.
Yeah. I thought your point, Alexandra, about not being out of the stock here because we have so much room to run. I think that's really the you can't be greedy here, and trying to pick it off perfectly. I think anything at the 200 level, when we gap filled that 206, I mean that was the expected move for me. So at this point now, I'm just except if something bad happens, but I don't see a reason, even if earnings aren't like stellar, but they're plateauing or flattening. So I think up and away.
What would happen if Andre
investment.
Karpathy does join Tesla again? I mean, that's just a complete...
Tesla or XAI? Which
right.
one? Which one?
More like, you're right. It's more likely XAI as I rethink this. I guess it won't do anything. Nobody's going to think of Tesla.
I think Larry's point was really good, that we need some clarification of the interactions between these companies. I think that, as shareholders of Tesla, and we're not, Larry is a shareholder also of X, but we're not shareholders of X, and at the moment not interested by XAI. Yet we do have the clear feeling that Dojo helps, and a lot of other, even personnel may change or whatever. It would be good to have a clear layout how these companies work together. And if Andre comes back which I really hope, and goes to XAI, would be great. Would really be wonderful for all that. But what does that mean for Tesla and XAI? Is there going to be a link? And we discussed it earlier in the space. I really hope that Tesla gets a stake in XAI, because I think that would be for us shareholders all a wonderful occasion.
Right. So Elon announced that X investors get 25% of XAI. That's all he said. What about Tesla? What about Tesla investors? If Tesla investors get a piece of XAI, then I think that Tesla now gets seen as that extra bit that this is an AI company. Maybe it's going to get a kind of AI valuation.
And did you see that there were a couple of prominent voices, including Omar, calling for Elon to have a new compensation package? I don't think that was a coincidence.
That's what I was going to ask you.
I was just like, why in the world would Omar wake up one morning and say, "Oh, I want to drive down to San Diego and see that Cybertruck. Oh, and by the way, here's my next tweet. We should all work for a new compensation package for Elon." Now, let me make this very clear. I am for a compensation package of Elon. I want him to be extremely motivated and have a huge leverage if the stock price goes to an enormous level again. I just think that works, right? If he's convinced that the Tesla stock is worth, I don't know, say something $1,000, he should get a very consequent remuneration for himself, for his projects, for everything he's put in there. So him working for Tesla for free, just because he's the biggest shareholder today, that doesn't make any sense, right? He should be remunerated, and he should have goals and skin in the game. But I just found that very strange that this would just pop up. It wasn't him only; there were 2 or 3 others. I was like, well, where does this come from, right? Where are we that this comes from? Now, you have to know, for this to work, it has to get on next year's shareholder meeting. This year's shareholder meeting was in May. They slowly start drafting what they want on there. It's lawyers drafting this. It's Martin assisting with this. So it's early. It's the 6 months away. They can move that shareholder meeting earlier. If they want to move it earlier, they have to announce it in a couple of weeks. So there may be stuff brewing again. Remember last year, at the same time, we were talking about it, and then it came earlier than we expected. So this may be a point.
The December thing, I was going to ask, isn't that when
remember that one?
Whoops,
exactly.
Too late. You can't get your diamond mine things in there.
Exactly. Yeah. So there may be something popping again. But again, I just felt like this remuneration subject, it should come up. It's normal it comes up, but where did it come from today? I have no idea.
So now I think I understand why Elon's tweeting the things he tweets. He's trying to remind everyone he's in charge of the stock price.
I don't know. Don't think so, but okay. Well, wonderful. I mean, he's he deserves it. That'd be a really big boost. And thank you for giving me the timeline. I was going to ask you that because it did look a little suspicious that a few people started tweeting that out.
Well, look, I think you've had a bunch of CEOs of tech companies on the stage. We spent all weekend talking about it, so I don't think it's like a planted seed that or he was.
This whole open AI, I think salary was the least information. It was much more about governance, about how far investments would go and all that. I don't think it was really about how much do I get paid and do I get more or less options. I mean, may have been behind the scenes.
No, that was my point. My point was that, like, thinking about keeping your CEOs and keeping your, what are the motivating factors for doing so? Maybe that's what went through Omar's mind. We should ask him.
And I just want to recall, next shareholder meeting is going to be the re-election, if we don't have new candidates, of Mr. Murdoch and of Kimball. Those are the two that are up for re-election next shareholder meeting.
I've created a website that is the most comprehensive resource for the Tesla investor. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com. But here's what I'm thinking is happening, okay? So obviously Tesla has got its plan. It's got its master plan. Elon started XAI 5 months ago, and he initially was intending it for it to be within Tesla, but then he couldn't recruit anybody who didn't want to work for a big corporation. They wanted to have shares in a small company. So he did that. So that's the board. Tesla's board needs to be very clear of how XAI, and then he bought X, which happened like a year ago now, and now Tesla. How do they, like you said, work together? He's got to clarify that. And so this has now become AI. This is probably bigger than energy, bigger than cars, bigger than robots even. It's possible.
And where is Dojo? Because that's where it's happening.
Where's Dojo, which is the data warehouse, the chips, and the compute, and then the power that they need is all in Tesla, right? The solar energy, the batteries that they need to run these data centers. And so there's this bigger play now. Tesla's not just a car company, not just a robot company, which is weird, right? It's like the biggest thing. And AI company is bigger than all those. And so Tesla's board needs to think bigger and kind of like, how do you connect these three companies that Elon owns? So
I'm actually wondering whether we're not missing a board member that is AI specific. Now we have the current board. I look at them very closely. They all have their strengths and weaknesses, but we have a quite diversified board, which is good. We have somebody from media, we have somebody from finance, we have somebody from personnel. So there is, and there are a couple of venture capitalists in there, but I think we're missing a key person who really has a vision on AI at the moment on the board. But that maybe there's a recruitment coming.
I agree with that. Another thing I'll say as a shareholder is that Tesla shareholders have funded a lot of stuff.
Oh, my bag was there, and yours too. I can tell you, we were holding them.
So I really think, and Elon has said that he is going to make this right for Tesla shareholders. Again, not if you look at it over the long time horizon, if you've been in it forever. Again, this is the thing. You talk to Tesla shareholders. Well, you have a 10-year horizon. Well, what if you've been in it for 10 or 11 years? So
look at me.
Yeah. No. So I mean, with everything that's X has been funded, XAI has been funded, all these different things, and you can say like Elon's doing this with the money that he's made, from his compensation plan, but also there's Tesla resources, there's people, there's the servers, there's Dojo. Like, where's all this stuff going to reside that's powering basically the brain of X? And it'd be great to hear about it at the next shareholders meeing.
Yeah, I agree.
I just suggest Tesla offer like $10 billion, and then get all the IP, and then the CEO gets kicked. Oh wait, that's a different company.
I got a theory.
No, don't even go there.
Alexandra, I have a theory. My theories usually turn out right. So Elon just announced very recently that X investors get 25% of XAI. The reason he didn't announce Tesla is because he needs Tesla's board to approve it. He is able to announce that because he owns X and he owns XAI. He needs Tesla, and now this is gonna happen. This will happen. What do you think? He just needs to have the board final approval.
I think it will be part of a bigger plan. We discussed this a little bit in the space. While if I look only at current, I mean, don't take the only literal, but if I look at only the current plans that we all knew for Tesla, maybe opening India, Mexico, and all that, the current cash situation was sufficient. We've had this discussion a lot of time. Last year 2023, free cash flow was difficult, first, second, and third trimester, but we're still sitting on $26 billion of cash. So that is enough to continue the next couple of months exactly, with the rhythm they want to do. They may want to accelerate or not, that's fine. But if at the same time you want to ramp up Dojo, you want to invest in XAI, you want to, really play big cards now, you may need to do a capital raise. And the numbers I had proposed was 30 billion. Larry Goldberg earlier said 50 billion. This is consequential money. This is where the board has to come in and be convinced. That's why I just said earlier, we may be missing this AI person that has this vision, right? I'm sure Elon can convey it to them, but it's just much better when you have an independent person that gives you that as well. If we have that money, if there is this capital raise, that would mean we go from 26 to 56 or 66 or 86 billion. Then these investments can be made. And yes, then you're completely right. Then we can suddenly play big game.
Okay, it all comes together now. It all makes sense now. So when Elon said at the earnings call that we need to slow down in Giga Mexico because of potential recession, that is true, right? That's absolutely true. But it's all kind of a little bit exaggerated because they're continuing to invest heavily in Dojo, $2 billion.
Of course, that's what they did.
They need to invest more. And so part of the reason why they don't want to invest so much on a new factory is where they need to invest in. This is a war. This is a race. I was just saying this recently. Microsoft announced they're going to be spending $50 billion in 2024. And they're going to spend another $50 billion ongoing per year. So Tesla needs to rise up in order to fight these, you got the Google, you got the Microsoft, and now you got Tesla. They need to raise $50 billion to be able to compete. Data centers, employees, chips, algorithms, make it happen.
And Nicola will never believe this because he announced these amounts. I think he announced 20 billion to you, right? When he talked about a capital raise, when you had
Nicholas
Colas, yes.
Colas, yes. He said 20 billion, but that's only to
that's
just
for
for
cars.
Exactly.
Exactly. If now this really happens for 50 and it has nothing to do with cars, the irony.
Okay. Something big is going to come, guys. Okay, well, here we are. We're bulls. All right. Well, thank you very much. Fantastic conversation.
Happy
folks,
Thanksgiving.
You've got to follow Jeff on X at the Jeff Lutz. This guy, as you have seen every show he's on, he is by far the most incredibly intelligent. Thank you so much for giving us your time and help. You've got Xander at R6 Alex on X as well. He is economy. He is about stocks. And of course, we don't need to pitch you, Alexandra. You got 100,000 followers.
I don't yet. 94.6. But it's not Xander R66. It's real meet Xander now. Look at him. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving. I found it really funny how Jeff and Alexandra just a few moments ago scratched their head at the exact same moment.
Oh,
then I was watching.
Coordinated.
Yeah, and then I watched
Benny,
Herbert.
If you're watching the show, Alexandra does this a lot, by the way. She does this. Use the middle finger.
That's when I think. And it depends which finger I think with.
See you guys.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. Later.